There is one thing that Trump cares about, and that is retaliation, okay? Being unpopular. If the market screams bloody murder and the people are promptly terrified, terrified of the price increases that are slated to happen, and they rise up in arms potentially, then Trump might back away from it. He is unstable. He's already went back and forth on this shit. He might just like delay the tariffs or whatever. So who knows? Fantastic moment for me. JD Pondon, ladies and gentlemen, he is doing it. Permanent first world genocide. The Treatlerites will all suffer. The suburbs will scream bloody murder. We will disrupt America's global hegemonic trade status. That is right. Are you enjoying the show? Refill your popcorn. You'll love this next part, he said, except you can't refill your popcorn because it's more expensive now. That's right. Even popcorn is going to become more expensive. Just kidding. Corn is like the one thing that's heavily subsidized. So it's probably and made in the United States. That's why it's in every fucking food that we consume. So who knows? But yes, let's take a look once again. One big point amid all the headlines. I was texting with the press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, senior Washington correspondent for the CNBC, and she confirms that the 34% tariff on China is on top of the previous 20%. So that means the rate on China will be 54% when the tariffs take effect. 54%. Trump to impose higher than expected tariffs. Markets drop. Live updates. Plan to impose steep tariffs on many countries, including 34% on China, except it's 54%. Just kidding. 20% on European Union, 46% on Vietnam, 32% on Taiwan. That'll never not be funny. 32% tariffs on Taiwan is a permanently funny thing to do. It is hilarious. It's like, it feels like he's doing that for Xi. I don't know what to say beyond, it seems like he's doing that for Xi specifically. Trump also signing an executive order to close the de minimis exemption from China. It's a small amount of goods compared to everything he put tariffs on today, but the de minimis imports from China are north of $20 billion. No more Temu, no more fucking goods being exempted because they're insanely fucking cheap. I'm serious. He's killing his own drop shippers, by the way. He's literally killing his drop shippers. That's what's going on. So respect. Breaking MAGA dad reaction. He's using our economic might as to wedge the equilibrate with other economies. Equilibrate? Yeah. I mean, your MAGA dad is just repeating what MAGA is saying. So that's all this is. Equilibrate is a real word, dumb chatter. Yeah, it's not. It's just not one I've ever used or encountered. Equilibrate? No, equilibrate? What? Shut up! All right, I'm never using that word. So it doesn't matter. CNBC said this is the worst of the worst case scenarios I covered earlier. CNBC anchor says the market reaction after hours, I've never seen anything like this. This is worse than the worst case scenario in terms of what the market expected. Laos getting hit with 48%, Madagascar with 47%, Vietnam with 46%, Sri Lanka 44%, Myanmar 44%, Bangladesh 37%, Morocco 10%, El Salvador 10%, Saudi Arabia 10%, Egypt 10%, Turkey 10%. My goats are thriving. Fun fact, the Boston Tea Party was a protest against a tariff. Yeah. You guys don't deserve South African wine anyway. Yeah, everything will get more expensive. Every single thing will get more expensive. For the record. Every single thing that you're purchasing will get more expensive as a consequence of this. That is if these are fully implemented. The reason why I say that is if these are fully implemented is because there is one thing that Trump cares about, and that is retaliation, okay? Being unpopular. If the market screams bloody murder and the people are promptly terrified of the price increases that are slated to happen, and they rise up in arms potentially, then Trump might back away from it. He is unstable. He's already went back and forth on this shit. He might just like delay the tariffs or whatever. So who knows? If he were to implement a stimulus check in this process, by the way, if he were to hit stimmies on this, I need you to understand something. If he were to also give stimmies on this, this is full Erdogan. No joke. If he were to expand the welfare state as a reaction to this, it would quite literally be the Erdogan initiative. Hyperinflation with a little bit of money that you're offering to the citizens in an effort to make sure that they don't die. European Commission President von der Leyen will deliver a statement at 5 a.m. Brussels time following U.S. tariff announcement. She doesn't speak in our name. Nice. Tesla truth owner. Tesla owner in Europe says Ursula von der Leyen does not speak in our name. Yeah. Nintendo Switch 2 would originally be a Japanese import, which would have been 24%. But Nintendo just announced that they're moving productions to Vietnam to avoid tariffs. But Trump just announced a 46% tariff on Vietnam. Nobody's getting egg or Switch 2 sad. I think there are a lot worse things to worry about than being able to afford the Switch 2 with what might happen to them, with what might happen to the American economy. Because not to be too much of an Econ 101 Andy, but like when the cost of goods get higher and higher and people's purchasing power is diminished in the process, company profits go down. There's no movement. There's no growth. When there's no growth, there's layoffs, which cooks you even further. And then you sink further and further away with no way out of it. I'm no stonks freak, but the market charts seem kind of off, like they're not reporting accurately or something. What do you mean? I've said this over and over again. I've said this time and time again. Americans are treatlerites. Treats are the things that hold the treats are the things as the fabric that holds the society together. When jalapeno poppers are no longer $5, you're cooked. People will come out in droves. People come out in arms, dude. Americans are so hyper-focused on the cost of living that they voted for a guy who was saying, I'm going to actually lower the prices by deporting 20 million people. They didn't even care. That's why I kept making the argument that if Kamala Harris were to come out and be like, I'm going to assassinate the Walton family on television, and that is going to lower the price of bread, every American will be on board with it. Not because they love ceremonious extrajudicial assassinations of incredibly wealthy people or whatever, but only because they were like, all right, whatever it takes, that seems fine. And the greatest example that I pointed to was Kamala Harris being like, I'm going to do price caps. You claim you're smart, but you did not predict Taiwan tariff exposed. No, I covered it before. I just thought it was so stupid that it made no sense, that I genuinely didn't think he would do that. Because he's mentioned it before. He floated Taiwan tariffs before, and we all thought it was a joke. Because why the fuck would you tariff Taiwan? Swedish insurer Folksam diverts 160 million Tesla stake. Oh shit. Gamers are now mad that physical copies are now projected to be $90, digital to be $80 due to the production costs, employee compensation, international asset, research consultation, business maintenance ranging from food, employee benefits, janitorial to server costs. Yeah, no, price of wait till the fucking Mongolians realize that games are going to be more expensive as well. With seemingly no fucking larger titties either, which is something that I think they care about. Stop equating food and having a living to fucking treats. It's not treats, it's our fucking food and jobs. No, they are fucking right, stupid. Stop equating food and having a living to treats. I mean, it's treats too. You have to understand, it's fucking treats as well. It's not just surviving, okay? When I say treats. I mean buying a television every other year that is like marginally a little bit better is a treat. That's a treat. And many Americans do that because that's one of the only places where they can spend their money on, because the important things that actually provide upward social mobility or some semblance of upward social mobility, like fucking college education, is impossible to purchase. Other things necessary for survival, like healthcare, is impossible. Healthcare has become a privilege in this country. A privilege that only privileged people have. That's a treat. Guns are treats, but guns are made in America, so they're fine. You can buy more guns, most likely. Stop trying to be the friend who's too woke about this. So our jobs are treats? Is that what I said? Did I at any point say that? Why is it that the earwax that you have stuck in your goddamn earlobe my issue? Why are you making it my issue? Why are you making it my problem? Why are you making it everybody else's problem? It's so fucking annoying. You're like, I didn't understand what you were saying, and I made up my own mind about what you were saying because I didn't actually fully comprehend what you were saying. And now I'm going to fucking freak out on you for a thing that you didn't say.
On that chart. Why is that?
I'm not sure.
Not sure. Okay, I imagine that has to do potentially because they're already in negotiations previously with the 25%. I'm not sure if you saw the initial market reaction.
I haven't.
So equity futures slid on the news. You had talked about how we're in a detox period. Do you feel that we're still in that period, or are you starting to get a little bit concerned?
Well, the detox period has nothing to do with the tariffs. The detox period is off this incredible level of government spending that we've had, an unsustainable amount of fiscal stimulus. And look, that's got to stop. That's got to stop. So
this is what I mean.
Can we continue weaning ourselves off of that? And as we see private...
Do you understand? This is what sedates the masses, okay? This is what sedates the fucking masses. Do you understand? And this is an old ass, this is from 2016. It's even worse now. This is what I mean when I say treats. All that shit is relatively affordable, so you think, oh, I can go to a McDonald's. I can get a new household furniture. I can get a new clothes because it's cheap. And it makes you feel like you are better off. And that is the very fabric that holds American society together. That's what I'm talking about. And the moment that that shit is also expensive because of these actions, the moment, and the reason why all that shit is not expensive, the reason why all that shit is inexpensive is because of free trade. The moment that these things also skyrocket in prices, you have nothing. You have nothing holding it together. You have nothing holding society together. You're like, this is what good is this? What good is this project if I can't get a fucking new iPad? What good is all this endless bloodshed in the third world? What I mean.
Narrow margin issued the reconciliation instructions, and then he also passed a clean continuing resolution on the Senate side.
Is there anything we can do to fight back against tariffs? No, there's nothing you can do. You can't fight back against tariffs by subscribing for $6 before Twitch increases the price of subscription, or for free with a Twitch Prime before Twitch decides to eliminate Twitch Prime. That's what you can do. Just kidding. There's not really anything. There's nothing you could do. I guess leave the United States, but every other market will be impacted by this too. So there's really nothing you can do in general. You can also get gifted a sub if you're lucky. I think Twitch lowered the price of gifted subs.
Interest was deductible, but now it's got to be only on American cars.
So how do you do all this at the same time that market participants, fiscal hawks, budget hawks in Congress are concerned about the deficit? How are you going to have this big reconciliation package?
Well, I think, as we've seen, there's a lot of room to cut spending. So I think, again, where Republicans have incredible unity is on the spending cuts, as we're seeing.
So when it comes to the timeline of all of this, I do notice that now reconciliation, it seems to be an agreement between the House and the Senate that they're willing to consider about raising...
Andrew episode month. Economists in Israel, economic officials in Israel are in complete shock over the Trump administration's decision to impose a 17% tariff on Israel. We are in shock. We were sure that the decision to completely cancel tariffs on imports from U.S. would prevent this move, but it didn't happen. Yeah, get fucked, dude. Get fucked. I mean, it's not enough. 17% is tiny, minuscule.
So that's when you plan to get this tax bill done.
They should have hit him with fucking 100%.
So if we could put both these stories together today, the president comes out with tariffs.
Trump is anti-Semitically imposing tariffs on Israel. Trump is anti-Semitically doing BDS. Who is going... Okay, Forward Magazine article, I'm imagining, okay? Forward Magazine article. Title: Trump stood against boycott, divestments, and sanctions. Now, he does the very same. Subtitle: Is Trump Hamas?
in the CBO scoring. So that will be something running in the background. And as the president said, we've taken in several $100 billion on the China tariffs, but those don't get scored.
Do you feel that you need to have enough revenue raised from these tariffs before this reconciliation package comes to play in Congress?
Well, I don't think we have to have the revenues raised. And look, we're doing two things. Tariffs are going to raise revenues, and then we're also stamping out waste, fraud, and abuse in the government and bringing down the expenses and spending. And we're not going to get credit for either of those with the CBO scoring. So when your audience, when American people see these CBO scores, there could be large, but there is a substantial amount of tariff income. There's a substantial amount of savings.
While all this is happening, consumer sentiment has definitely taken a bit of a dive. Expectations for inflation have gone up. Banks like Goldman are cutting their GDP forecast, saying potentially the Fed is going to have to cut rates, not the good kind of cuts, the kind of cuts because they're nervous about growth. How concerned are you that the timing of all this is going to be incredibly challenging because of how the American consumer, how corporate America is feeling at this moment?
Well, it tells me a couple of things. One, we got to get the tax bill done quickly, because that's a confidence builder. And two, we're seeing sentiment surveys from the American people, but we haven't actually seen them take action. If the households actually thought that there were going to be inflation, if their real inflation expectations had increased, what would they be doing? They'd be hoarding goods, and they would be demanding wage increases, and neither one of those has happened yet.
So at the moment, you're not concerned about some of the soft data we're seeing?
No, I see nothing, and one of the great things, many great things about being a Treasury is we have lots of business people come through, and everything we're seeing in the economy is still very solid.
And executives haven't voiced any of these concerns onto you?
No, there's some idiosyncratic things, but in terms of the expectations actually turning into hard data, none of them have seen it yet.
Now that you're working on the tax bill, and of course tariffs at the moment are out of the way, what else is on the agenda for you for the rest of the year?
Well, we have the Ukraine deal that's coming up. We've gone to maximum pressure on Iran, so a big part of Treasury is national security. And then we are doing a big push on deregulating in a smart, safe, and sound way the regulated financial institutions, which is going to allow for the private sector, not the government sector, to grow.
When it comes to international, where are you with Iran, Ukraine and the mineral deal?
I believe we may have a team from Ukraine coming over as soon as the end of this week or the beginning of next week. Ukrainians have, I believe that they've hired counsel. And what we did was after the incident in the White House on, I believe it was February 28th, we were going to sign a 4-page deal that was parameters of understanding. And at Treasury, we took the opportunity to move forward to the big deal. So this is the exact same deal that would have resulted from the 4-page signature deal. So we've just fast forwarded, and we didn't want to lose any time because we believe this deal is so important for the American people, for the Ukrainian people, and for the peace process.
So it sounds like in the next 2 weeks you're going to have this deal.
You know what's funny is coming is the only thing you will have soon.
When it comes to Iran,
Okay,
since you mentioned
the
that,
only
I know you're
tariff-free
focused a lot on
action
international
you'll be able to do
aspects.
is
Now the
basically
tariffs are done
sit
and you
there
have the tax deals
and
underway.
masturbate.
When it comes to Iran, do you think we could see secondary tariffs, secondary sanctions?
Well, we've already seen sanctions. For the first time, U.S. Treasury sanctioned a so-called teapot refinery, which is a private sector refinery in China, and they are the buyers of the Iranian oil, and we could see more of that.
Wow, interesting. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, you've been very generous with your time today. We really appreciate it here at Bloomberg TV. Thank you so much.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. Joe Cayley, of course, that was the Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent. The sense I got from him is when it comes to these tariffs, it is a ceiling, it is a cap. Says to me that this administration is willing to negotiate with trading partners.
All right, Bloomberg's Anne-Marie Hordern live at the White House with the Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent. Thank you so much. And of course, we did hear from President Trump the suggestion that if countries would like to see exemptions, they're going to have to lower their rates or terminate their tariffs, to use the word of the president. We'll have much more on this shortly and get some political analysis from our panel this evening. Still ahead here on Balance of Power on Bloomberg TV and radio.
Isn't it funny that Trump tariffed Israel but not Russia? Bro, what kind of trade do we have with Russia? 2.1 trillion wiped from the stock market, and Trump wants to raise 700 billion in these tariffs. This is going to be so stupid. Help, I'm in a do not come state. There's no such thing. Brave warriors, you will always be able to come. They will never be able to stop your revolutionary optimism. They will never be able to stop your power, your prowess. Your sexual prowess will be the only weapon you wield against all of these tariffs. After all, at the end of the day, even if you do not have materials to consume, we still have our imagination. And until they put a tariff on imagination, you will still be able to come, and you'll be coming so hard. You'll say, please, Mr. President, I don't want to come no more. I'm going to come. Oh, man, what a day. What a day. Canada and Mexico, targets of Trump's previous rounds of tariffs, and are the United States' top trading partners were not mentioned for additional tariffs in the president's charts in a detailed country-by-country documents handed out to reporters in the Rose Garden. If Canada and Mexico are left out of the country's specific tariffs announced by Trump today, and it looks that way, this will be a significant capitulation, even as both nations continue to face tariffs plus sectoral tariffs such as on steel and aluminum as well as on autos. The majority of the nations listed for reciprocal tariffs on the documents distributed to reporters are developing economies. They will include world's poorest nations, South Sudan, Burundi, and Central African Republic, as well as countries in the throes of war, e.g. Sudan. This is the shit you should get banned for. If you don't come, China has won. That's what the best they're saying. Yeah. Russia and Belarus are the only former Soviet states not included in Donald Trump's sweeping new reciprocal tariffs. Ukraine faces a 10% tariff, EU 20%, China 34%. Yeah, I just don't know. I don't know how. What is this? Genetically engineered cat girls are possible, scientists say, but we lack funding. Is this still coming, Elon Musk? Of course. Yeah, this is before he got comstered. Correction, Russia is not the only country subjected to tariffs. I regret not subject to tariffs. North Korea is also exempted. U.S. trade with North Korea is heavily embargoed, but it's not zero. Iran, also subject to heavy embargoes, is on Trump's tariff list at 10%. Quick clip from Chomsky on treats.
Is to maximize profit and market share. And they also have a goal for their target, namely the population. They have to be turned into completely mindless consumers of goods that they do not want. You have to develop what are called created wants. So you have to create wants. You have to impose on people what's called a philosophy of futility. You have to focus them on the insignificant things of life, like fashionable consumption. I'm just basically quoting business literature. And it makes perfect sense. The ideal is to have individuals who are totally dissociated from one another, whose conception of themselves, the sense of value, is just
Agent
how
47.
many created wants can I satisfy? We have huge industries, public relations industry is a monstrous industry, advertising and so on, which are designed from infancy to try to mold people into this desired pattern.
The aforementioned treats getting hit. Oh, I already talked about Vietnam, yes. The U.S. will tariff products from Vietnam at a 46% rate, could heavily impact Switch 2 pricing, possibly globally. Nintendo shifted Switch 2 production from China to Vietnam, Cambodia to avoid tariffs. Others include 34% tariffs on China, 49% on Cambodia, 24% on Japan, 20% on the EU, and more. It's like Donald Trump heard. It's like if Donald Trump heard Nintendo's announcement this morning and was like, I'm going to give a much larger tariff to Nintendo. Everything is Tesla. Everything computer. No Nintendo. You thought you could bring the Switch 2 to a different market. Well, guess what? that market will be hit by tariffs too. Anyway, everything is Tesla. Everything is Nintendo. Apparel stocks getting hit. Yeah, clothing will take forever to reshore. Yeah, so, I mean, here's what Ryan Grimm is saying, right? And this is correct. North America could genuinely be self-sufficient, though it might take us like 10 years to get there. It would be a brutal transition, but it would be a good thing in the end. Hard to see the U.S. do it solo without a huge collapse in standard of living. But anyway, Trump seems to expect us to do it in a few days. Good luck to us. Like, every country has no country can be fully self-sufficient, okay? I don't know why Ryan Grimm is a Jushaist, okay? Ryan Grimm is upholding the immortal science of Marxist-Leninist Jushaism, which I don't agree with. I don't even think it's necessarily a good thing to be entirely self-sufficient. I think it's fine to offshore certain products, or there's obviously not, like, what do you do with rubber? You know what I mean? What are you supposed to do? Invent it? And this is why he says North America and not the United States of America, because he's talking about Mexico and Canada as well. But even then, I think ultimately, there is not all matter of international trade is bad. But in the short term, I don't think Americans that only care about treats and the cost of living in general will allow this kind of market shock to go on without severe repercussions. Because, as I've said, it's the only thing that holds the American society together, okay? The only thing that holds American society together is the fact that the labor aristocracy still benefits from the uneven exchange from the global South, where no matter how low prices get, there's a lot of shit that you can purchase that make you feel like you're in a better position overall. When you can't purchase those things now, all of a sudden you're going to be like, what's the entire project for? What are we doing? America only cares about the short term, so this it makes sense. This will piss them off. There's also the other side of this, which is like, how are we certain that this will boost domestic manufacturing? Not even in a short time frame, but in any time frame whatsoever. And how will that be beneficial? How will that be beneficial for American labor in general? Because let's say you bring back manufacturing, but now Americans are in an infinitely shittier position overall, and they're desperate to take on any job whatsoever. There's no curbing back on a lot of the big ticket items that Americans must purchase for upward social mobility, or services that they must hire for upward social mobility, or healthcare, right? Or housing, shelter. If you don't fix any of those problems and you bring back manufacturing, people are in an incredibly desperate predicament where they'll go and work at these factories with diminished labor protections, with diminished worker protections. They still can't afford the treats that they want to afford. They're in a worse position overall. It's unsustainable. It's completely unsustainable, both in the short term and in the long term, especially when, so stupid, especially without trying to find a solution to the cost of living crisis for all of the important necessities, all the important things that you need, goods and services that you need for survival, upward social mobility, and things like that. And if the manufacturing capabilities of America is boosted, and yet it doesn't actually yield better labor protections or higher wages in general, and it's just mostly automated manufacturing anyway, and the labor force that still works is working in worse conditions overall, then that's not a benefit to the American economy.
Sense of what we know so far about this. There's still a few unanswered questions.
I like this. Trump's tariffs. What just happened?
But finally, we got the detail on what Donald Trump meant by this Liberation Day. And let me just kind of start by showing you these bars are how high those tariffs, the US tariffs, are on various different countries around the world at the moment, or rather before Donald Trump came into office, and a quick kind of bit of revision on where we've come from so far. So threatened tariffs on Mexico and Canada. They were repeatedly threatened, repeatedly rescinded or lifted, but they might well be back again, who knows. But for the time being, they're
50% tariffs on the roughly 6,000 people who live in St. Pierre and Miquelon. Yeah. That's really fucked up. St. Pierre and Miquelon have been cooking us for far too long. It's time. It's Jover. We have to punish them. Their endless thirst for super profits knows no bounds. It's time to drop the act. They've been fucking us over, dude. The British Indian Ocean Territory is getting a 10% tariff. It's uninhabited and only has a U.S. military base. Yes. They didn't say thank you hard enough.
gone. We know we got an extra 10% tariffs on China, China 1.0, then another extra 10% tariffs on China 2.0.
The herd in McDonald's Islands are completely uninhabited. Population 0. Guess we're going to tariff the seagulls. It kind of feels like a White House intern went through Wikipedia's list of countries and just generated a list off of that with no further research. Pictured, the place which is, according to the Trump White House, apparently imposing 10% tariff on the United States. Note the total lack of any human settlements there. Yeah, the whole, this is the amount of tariffs that they're fucking, the entire principle behind, like, this is all the tariffs that they're charging us, by the way, is completely made up. It's completely made up. You might think, no way, dude, the administration is going to make a bold declarative statement that undermines the way that the global economy has been designed for the past multiple decades. There's no shot that they would just like ask an AI chatbot to develop numbers. And the answer to that is yes, they will do that. And I think they did do that. Like China imposing tariffs to the United States at 67% is not correct. It's just a lie. How did they arrive at that number? They arrived at that number because they made it up. They fucking made it up. What do they mean by this? Trump assumes VAT, like value-added tax, is a tariff. And if you, as long as you claim anything and everything is a tariff, like domestic tax decisions that are implemented by sovereign nations, formerly sovereign nations, are now considered a tariff on American goods. It's not a fucking tariff. The value-added tax is not added on. The value-added tax is not added on to just American goods. It's added on to everything by sector. Sometimes by whatever the good is or whatever the service is, whatever the, you know, whatever the thing that you're purchasing is, regardless of its nation of origin, whether it's produced domestically or produced overseas, it does not matter. And that's something that people don't comprehend about this. And that's why the fine print says tariffs charged to the USA, including currency manipulation and trade barriers. That's why it's not tariffs. That's why everyone's like, what the fuck are you talking about? What do you mean tariffs? I had to dig deep to try to comprehend what he meant when he was talking about trade restrictions back in the day, if you recall. And we found out together that he actually was talking about VAT, for example. Like he kept saying VAT, they're doing value-added tax. You know what a VAT is? That's a tariff. That's a tariff. It's not real. They want to make currency manipulation a thing. I mean, bro, I don't think he gives a fuck about VAT. He wants to tariff them, and he will. Even if they get rid of VAT, Trump will keep the tariffs. Yes, Israel is a great example of a country that seemingly completely eviscerated their tariffs right before this. Shut up, Piker. You are embarrassing yourself. Explain to me what you disagree with respect to what I have said so far. Did I crack it? I think I figured out at least a chunk of the math. It's trade deficit divided by exports. EU exports. Wait, what? Israel exports 22.2, imports 14.8, deficit 7.4. 7.4/22.2 is 33. No. Vietnam exports, no. Account created 11 minutes ago. Following says 12 minutes ago. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and assume this is a sock account that doesn't have any good ideas at all.
You might call them, and we're now kind of waiting to find out what happened next, and we finally did find it out. Let's just start. There are two parts to this. Okay?
It's so funny because those guys will make a sock account after being banned numerous times in the broadcast for being a fucking idiot or racist. And then I'll ban them sometimes without looking at their background, looking at whether or not they've been in the chat for like 12 minutes or if it's a new account or not. And then they'll clip that and go, Hassan bans dissent. He hates when people disagree with him. And it's like, you didn't even disagree with me. You just didn't even bring up anything. You made a sock account and you just said, you're wrong. You're out of your element or whatever the fuck. And then you get banned with your sock account and then you fucking cry about it. I'm apolitical, baby.
Okay, so first of all, there is going to be a 10% baseline tariff. So you see all of these bars go up by 10%, including, of course, the UK. But that, as far as the White House is concerned, is just a baseline. And then on top of that, there are different tariffs for different nations, what they call reciprocal tariffs. And they say they've gone through the numbers. They've looked at not just the tariffs that other countries around the world are charging the US, but also what they call non-tariff barriers, so other things. And they've worked out, by the way, Canada, those Mexico-Canada tariffs might well come back, so we might well start from that position. But reciprocal tariffs might push all of these bars, or will push all of these bars up considerably higher. So just look at how the picture of trade and tariffs in the US has changed dramatically as a result of these measures which are coming in the next few days. And just to give you a few highlights of what we're talking about. So you could look, for instance, over there at China. So China, that's a 34% reciprocal tariff, but it takes the total amount, provided that goes on top of the existing tariff, it takes the total amount up above 50%. And you're talking, you know, when tariffs are going above 50%, that makes any trade very, very difficult and far less likely to happen. So that's China, but you can probably see here, Vietnam as well. And the point here from the White House has been to say, listen, lots of Chinese goods going into the US, but also going through, being Vietnam and Cambodia as well, being conduits for goods to go to America. And the point here from Donald Trump is that the US wants to reindustrialize. And so it's all about trying to make things domestically. But finally, look at the UK, 10% on the UK. And for many people here, obviously, it is a big increase on where things were before, only a few percent, the average rate for the UK. But that goes up to 10%. It is the best rate that anyone has among...
Oh, my God. I thought that was a joke. I thought one of the chatters... I thought when one of the chatters said the U.S. government classifies Quebec's Bill 96 as a foreign trade barrier, I thought you were joking. Oh my God. U.S. government classifies Quebec's Bill 96 as a foreign trade barrier? Oh, it's so funny that America is trying to dominate the world by trade. And I feel like this will blow up in America's face. Like, what do you mean? Other countries are not allowed to impose any sort of domestic agenda that we decide is not good? This is like claiming that DEI initiatives implemented in like another sovereign nation is now being considered a fucking trade barrier. Like accessibility is now considered a trade barrier. You have to eradicate it. This is America wielding its trade power as the consumption engine of the planet in a way to dominate other countries and whatever the fuck they're doing. It is so crazy. Yeah, you can't speak French in Quebec. Sorry, that's a trade barrier. I've decided being a francophone is a trade barrier. What are you going to do about it? You know? It's good stuff. I mean, it's funny to also put this up there because this will cause the French Canadians to riot. Like, they really, really care. They care quite a bit about being able to speak French. That's kind of a big deal, I think. Quebec, merde.
Amongst any nations. In fact, the best rate that any G7, any leading economy in the world has, and certainly better than the EU, all of whom are having to pay an extra 20% in total, so 10%, another 10% on top. But even so, all of this will potentially diminish the amount of trade going on around the world and diminish the amount of stuff going into the US. And finally, it's worth just saying, what was the stock market reaction? Well, This decision was made after markets had closed, but we can look at the futures market. This is the NASDAQ futures market, and look at what happened. It went up a little bit after the announcement, and then it's come down quite considerably. So a market reaction there, which implies that when markets open...
Wait, is that why Asmongold's chat was like, oh, I'm sure Hassan is going to be fucking eating crow when he finds out that the markets are actually up? Is that why they were saying that? Because they only saw the first part? I saw a bunch of comments in his chat talking about me being stupid and wrong. Dow Jones getting decimated. Dow futures tumble more than 700 points. S&P 500 futures lose 3% on Trump's tariff rollout. That's why he said, don't look at the markets. That's why he said, don't look at the markets. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't look at the markets. For one day, for as long as it's red, don't look at it. When it's green again, we can look at it. Gifting subs in this economy? Yeah. It's a recession indicator. How much Chinese do you know? Yeah, we already talked about the uninhabited islands that are getting tariffs apparently because they've been stealing far too much from America. That's funny.
In Asia, and indeed when they were open across the US and Europe, we're going to see some falls to come as people respond to this.
As I was saying, the market dipping didn't matter and claimed it's the price of goods and that people will care about. I mean, he's not wrong about that statement. It's just that if he assumes that the tariffs are going to lower prices on shit, he is insanely wrong on that. But then again, it doesn't matter because he's just defending Trump, and that's what people want to hear. They don't want to fucking hear analysis. They don't want to hear what will actually happen. They don't want to hear what is currently happening. They just want to hear someone go, Trump is based. That's what most people want. And there are liberals that also, when Kamala Harris was running and when Joe Biden was president, there were liberals who wanted to hear that too. I, unfortunately, never give that to them. I don't give the liberals what they want when liberals are in charge, and I certainly don't give the conservatives what they want when they're in charge, which is precisely the reason why so many fucking people develop resentments towards me, even if they arrive at my position far too late. That's it. Like if I was a squishy lib who just wanted to give liberals everything that they want to fucking hear, then I would be talking about how Cory Booker is amazing. That's why I'm saying I'm the one true king, if you will. The one true apolitical king. The real apolitics.
Ed, take a seat. I've got another question for you. There is more coming out of the White House right now, senior White House officials, etc. Trump is to sign an order that closes the de minimis loophole. This is according to an aide. Tell us why that is significant and how it might affect a nation like China, for example.
So this is on top of all of those things we were showing you. De minimis basically means that for really small, kind of low-value items that are going in and out of countries, a lot of that stuff just isn't charged a tariff. So what is a tariff? Ultimately, it is just, we're going to charge you 20% on everything that comes into the country, although it's the recipient that actually pays it. But for fast fashion, for items that are going in that are relatively cheap, and this is a big thing for China. You've got companies like Shein who are sending stuff relatively cheaply from Guangdong and different parts of China. Right now, that's not subject to any tariffs. Donald Trump said earlier on, so when he had one of his early we're going to impose tariffs on China, he said, we're getting rid of de minimis. But then what happened was that suddenly, in airports around the US, you were seeing massive big piles of goods that no one was quite sure what to do with, because it's an enormous administrative challenge. And I think that, Anna, is the bigger issue here. Raising all of these tariffs, different tariffs on different countries, and a kind of extraordinary smorgasbord of different numbers we've just seen, and Donald Trump, held up this chart of all of the different numbers. It is likely to just increase the amount of work that it takes for America to collect these tariffs. But the point that Donald Trump wants to make, can I show one more chart, like as a bonus thing? But the point that Donald Trump wants to make is that back in a long time ago, the majority of federal revenues came from tariffs. Raising money from tariffs, and right now that line is basically down, close to zero, kind of only a few percent. And his point is always, rather than raising money through income tax, couldn't we raise it again through tariffs? And I'll spare you the next charts, but point out that ultimately that is really, really tough to do. It's really tough in the modern world of 2025 when you have, welfare states, when you have Medicare, when you have, standing armies that are quite expensive. You can't just raise all of your money through tariffs. No one has been able to do that. And so That is the challenge that he's faced with right now. But what he wants to do is to be able to say, we're going to try and reindustrialize, hence all of those tariffs on China, on Vietnam, on Cambodia, and we're going to try and raise a bit of money from it in the process. And I think that's the selling point. But what
It's so funny to look at tariffs as a percentage of total federal revenues and try to bring it back to like the 1800s, because global trade does not look the same. And it's not like global trade is not the same anymore. Me not being an economist, the de minimis loophole closing is the one thing I'm in favor of. No, they're destroying Temu, Shein. They're destroying the MAGA merch economy. That is one thing that I predicted and laughed about quite a bit. Be on the lookout for a CNN spot with that blonde reporter with the glasses that used to work at Vice. She will go back to those, I'm calling it now, she will go back to those MAGA merch stores and she will talk to them in a couple months, and they will be screaming bloody murder about how Donald Trump ruined their fucking business model. Just wait. I'm telling you right now. Yeah, Ellie. I think her name is Ellie Reeves. Yeah. She always goes to the MAGA stores. Remember? That's like her thing. She goes to the MAGA stores for CNN all the time. What do you mean? You act like there won't be donations from exemptions? You think Trump gives a shit about some fucking sweaty loser MAGA sycophant that opened up the third MAGA merch store in some fucking backwater town? Yeah, dude, he really will protect those guys. What are you, crazy? He despises his base. When will people learn? He hates them. Go to every fucking ghost town. There's a MAGA store merch. Every single goddamn ghost town has a MAGA store merch. Maybe one, maybe two, sometimes 4 or 5. Yeah. Ellie Reeves will straight face ask them, Donald Trump destroyed your business prospects by making dropshipping functionally illegal. Do you regret voting for him? And they will dead ass wipe their fucking tears and go, no, that's my glorious president. He's going to make America great. I still believe him. Just wait. When that CNN hit comes out, I know you guys will be the first to send it to me. Okay? You'll send me that CNN hit. Some of the MAGA store merch owners will say, it's not the greatest. I don't like it. I voted for him. This is not what I thought he would do. But there will be at least 1 or 2, most likely a woman, okay? The most rabid QAnon moms will be saying, wiping away their fucking tears, they'll be going, it's okay. This is one of the funniest graphs I've ever seen. America's views on foreign trade. Trump has made Americans more pro-free trade than they have ever been. Only 14% say it's a threat to the economy. This is also kind of devastating, too, because free trade, opportunity for economic growth is not great. Type of folks say God must have a plan for something greater for me because Trump is fulfilling the work of our Lord and Savior, so it must be what he wants. Yes.